All right, testing one, two. Okay, cool. All right, so what I'm gonna do in this stream particularly is try to do a mod from beginning to end, but it is going to be just essentially like the basics of getting a mod in the game, right? So one of the first things that you're gonna want to do is you need to make sure you have certain prerequisite tools at your disposal. So you want to make sure you have F model. You're going to need that to get stuff out of the game and check things. You're going to want to have a base mesh uh, blend file. Now, you can find that on the Modding Zaibatsu Discord. Let me see if I open that up real quick. So you can go to the Modding Zaibatsu Discord. Just search it on Google, and if you go into, I believe, like the guide section or the release section. Yeah. So Uman has made some base bodies and he keeps them up to date. I also have some base bodies that you can use that I use on all of my videos. If you go to my GitHub, CDDT Reborn, go to Tekken8 Resources. If you go to the wiki, I have a bunch of things that I've drafted and written up, how to set up F model, starter guide for setting up your engine, things of that nature. But at the bottom, I try to keep this up to date and then have this male and female base mesh. So I use this as an asset library within Blender. Um, but uh, but yeah, you want to have those. That's going to be one of your biggest tools um, that you have. When you actually get to the project, I'll show you guys exactly what you need for your project to get you set up with the easiest things. But to start off with, we're going to take a look at uh, the two types of rigs that are used in Tekken 8. So we use or rig setup. So there are two separate rigs that exist in Tekken 8. There's one that's called an MSL, which is the muscle rig, and a PRP, which is the proportion rig. Um, Basically, the way Tekken works is it has um, a unique setup, and that uses just an MSL rig. So if I were to open up F model, let's see, I'll bring it over here. So once you have F model set up and you're loading your stuff, if you go into item, models, and unique, you'll see all the characters, and they all have different abbreviations. Um, you can look up the IDs for what the character abbreviations are on my GitHub. I don't think they're fully up to date with the new characters, um, but there's also resources on the Discord as well you can use. But let's say Cal. So Cal is Nina. If I go into here and I look at her full body, you can look at her full body meshes, and you'll see that she has this 1P MSL and this 1P PRP. So when a a mesh is set up like this, it's considered a common setup. Um, Now, if you go to a lot of their special stuff and a lot of the new characters, will only have one. So I think, nope, this has both. Okay, so this one. So this is a unique one, right? There's no matching PRP to go with it. The difference between these two is here, and I'll go ahead and download them. So I'll save this model. I'll show up here, and then I'll save the MSL from this one, save model. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this smaller real quick. And now I use the UE format for my exports whenever I do my stuff. And in order to use that with Blender, you'll need to get a Blender add-on that allows you to import the UE uh, assets as well. So you can Google that and get it. But if we look at these two, you can kind of see what the difference is. Oops, I can't drag and drop. But if you click on it, it will open up its location. And I'll go ahead and drag that into my project here. And I'll set this to 1, whatever, port, go, face it forward. So this is her special one. This is her unique. And then if we go back into F model right here and I click on the other, this one, bring this in. Let me import this one. We'll see what the difference between the two is. Unload. All right. So it's not a huge difference, but one of the key things is here. So this is Nina in her natural. This is Nina's proportions. This is Nina, but it's in her common proportions, and the common proportions are shared across all the females, right? When those meshes get into the game, they become this one, right? They go from this size, this smaller size to this size, or they'll go smaller. Whatever the character is, it'll go to the character's actual proportions. That's what the PRP mesh or rig is designed to do. It essentially uh, changes this mesh into this other mesh size, right, for the characters. So the game devs use this because it allows things to be a lot easier, and it also allows things to get swapped between the characters. I'm very disappointed that they didn't make swapping outfits between the characters more. They only did it with a couple of characters, like with like Lily and Asuka, but they could have done it with like the whole cast for the most part, and they could still do it with the whole cast if they chose to. They just don't. So for whatever reason, I think that's a missed opportunity, but whatever. So let's go ahead and get rid of these two. So those are the two different types of setups that we have. So the key thing to remember about those is that the MSL for the unique and the MSL for the common are not the same size, right? They're both called MSL when you're looking at the suffix for those assets, but they are not the same size, and that's why. All right, so let's look at we'll do a common setup as well. Another key thing about the common setup is that there's two sets of weights. Um, Now, I'm going to assume that you know what weight painting is. If you don't know what weight painting is, I'm not going to explain it really a lot in this video, but you can go online and check that out on YouTube. It's the same thing for anything that you're doing with 3D and rigs, you're going to need weight paints. So that's the thing to know. Now, in my uh, pack that I have for that's available, it's this thing right here, right? It's got these different assets in here, um, and in it I include um, the rig. So I have a MSL and PRP for the males, and I should have one for the females as well. So if I just click my female section, I've got a full body PRP and MSL, and for the males, I have one as well. So let's grab uh, female this MSL right here to start with, just so that we have it. And usually, actually, I'll just bring them both in. Set them to 0, so they're where they're supposed to be. And you can either import them directly to your blend file, or you can use an asset library, or you can append. You can do whatever you want. Just get them in here. And what I'm going to do is select both of these, and I'm going to hit M to create a new collection, and I'll just call this rigs, right? Just so that they're in their own thing. This allows me to hide them if I don't want to see them, right? But they're not gone. They're still in my project, right? Cool. Now let's get to the bodies. So if you're using, I believe, Omen's setup, I think he has the actual common body and all the parts of the bodies like split up into a bunch of like 1,000 pieces or whatever that you can use to gain weights and stuff. Me personally, that's too much for me to work with, so I decided to create this single common female body that has shape keys on it. I'm not going to go into the shape keys too much right now, um, but like if you want to learn about shape keys, you can look up online about those. But I created a bunch of these, and these have the different shapes for the different characters, right? I think might have one on by default. I do, so it's set to Nina's. So if I slide this to 0, you can see that the body changes, right? And I just want to make sure all of these are off and they're all set to 0 or they're not selected, right? Make sure this is set to 0. Um, and you know what? I'm going to bring back the MSL for one of these. We'll just grab this one and just kind of show you what the difference is between the two, and kind of like how my workflow and the workflow that I'll advise anybody that I'm working with to utilize. Um, so you can see that that common body that I have set up matches directly with this Nina one that is also set up with using a common setup. Um, but if I just move her over a little bit, grab her and move her over, let's grab this, go over here. I move her over and take a look at her weights, right? So if I go and click on this little box here for the data, I can look at vertex groups, right? We can go into weight paint to see what those vertex groups look like. Like scroll through them, you'll see areas. I'll just scroll all the way up to the top, right? So you can see where the different weights are associated with different bones and blah, 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 and all that good stuff. But if I scroll over here on this side, you'll see there's a lot of MUS weights on it, right? MUS, 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 right? Cool. If I grab the PRP that it's associated with, so let's see, go back into meshes and grab this PRP and we'll save that model. All right, I'll need to see that right now. Save model, go, and grab that. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and move this one off the side for a second. If we look at these weights over here, you can see that they all have this PRP on the side, right? And they may have the same or similar names like spine too, but it'll have this underscore PRP on the side because it's going to be associated with these bones. And the bones for both the MSL and the PRP are not the same. So you don't have to worry about them crossing over, et cetera, et cetera. So because I want to make things simpler for myself, I decided to take the weights from the MSL and the PRP and combine them. So if you look at mine, you'll see a bunch of PRP, and if you keep scrolling up, you'll start to see the MUS ones as well, right? MUS, MUS, right? So whenever I transfer weights over, I'm getting both the MSL and the PRP, and I'll show you why that makes a difference later, right? So here's our body, right? Here we go. We got a little body here, and say I want to um, add a piece of clothing to this body. The mod that we're going to do is just going to be a full body mod, right? So I have a little clothing thing in here. I'm going to grab uh, this shirt here that I have, and I'm just going to do a little shirt for this body. All right, cool. And this part you don't necessarily have to do. You should have your own stuff. And actually, you know what? Just keep things a little bit less complicated. Let's do that. Let's grab something from this mesh here. So let's grab, let's open up. Doesn't matter which one, MSL or PRP, it doesn't matter. But we'll grab this one, bring it in, import. So what I want to do is I'm just going to grab a part of this outfit and put it on this body. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to use the backslash to isolate it. And now I'm going to go into edit mode and I'm going to make sure I'm set to faces. And now I just want whatever this outfit on the top is. So I'm going to go ahead and see what that, oh, cool, that's nice. So that selects just that upper body piece. And so I'm going to right click and then separate by selection. And what that does is it separates that jacket top from the rest of the model. So I'm going to delete the rest of the model. Now I just have this jacket, which I'm going to put onto this new body, right? So now she's got a jacket and that's kind of cool. Now I'm using the common body setup. So like I said, this allows us to swap things pretty easily. And I can actually swap things without having to go in and do a mod like this. However, I wouldn't be able to swap things and get just a portion of an item like this. So let's go back into Fmodel real quick and I'm going to find some other character um, that has a lower body that I might want to put with this jacket. Let's see. It has to be a female though, just to really work. And let's look at Kunimitsu. So Kunimitsu is K-E-R, I believe. Let's see what she has. We can look at a full body. We could look at other stuff, but I think let's see what we got. We got score, outfit. Then we got our 1P. P. I don't know what this is. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so this one is an MSL only. So this won't work, right? I won't be able to grab just the lower body and get it to work right away. I'd have to make some adjustments, and I don't want to go into that right now. Let's see if she has any MSL both. Okay, so she has, so all of Kuni's stuff is just MSL only, so I'm not going to be able to use her stuff. And you'll see that that's the case with a lot of the DLC characters where they just have the MSL. That's also the case for, I think, Azucena, where she only has MSL only stuff as well. So we're not going to use that. So let me find a different character to use. Let's see, that might have a lower body that I can grab. I think Lily has like dresses all the time. I don't want her. Let's see. Um, this is Ling. Okay, so let's see what Ling has. Ling has MSL and PRP setup. So what is this one? I think she has one with like shorts or whatever. All right, so let's grab her shorts. I think they're gonna be full. I think she has one where it's just her shorts. Let's see. Let's look at this one. Nope, that still has top. This one, whatever. This one will be good enough, I guess. Let's use that. And so we know that Ling and Nina are not the same size, so this kind of will kind of like bring that point home. So if I bring this in, import it. Oh, I actually gotta hit the import button, I guess. There we go. All right, so I'm going to select this and then right click so that it's by itself. And I think she's wearing pants. So that works out great. So let's go into edit mode and I'm going to select her pants. Select, okay. Wait, her leg pants are like that? Interesting. Oops. Um, huh. Okay. I didn't know they had this little thing on the side, but whatever. I don't think I think her legs skin. Oops. Leg skin. Yep, I guess those are her pants. Okay, cool. That works. So I'm just going to grab her pants. I'm going to hit separate by selection. And now I'm just going to get rid of the rest of her stuff. And I guess this top also came with it. Let's go ahead. But you see it all fits for the most part. The chest is a little bit peeking through, but for the most part the body fits the same setup. So let's see. Let's just trying to think. Did I do it I think I did the opposite way. Let me hit Control Z. Okay. So I want to keep these and get rid of these. All right, let's delete that. All right, so now we've got these pants here um, for Ling. And I'm going to go ahead and remove unused slots so I just have those shorts there. And then I'll hit oops, no, backspace. I'm gonna, where did I put Nina's stuff? I might have deleted Nina's stuff on accident. I did. Ah, it's annoying. So let me grab it again. All right, so we got Nina back. go ahead and isolate her, and I'll just grab this again real quick. Grab this, hit select, separate selection, and now delete everything but the jacket. Okay, so now I got this custom setup, right? This doesn't exist in the game. I'm gonna make a couple quick edits to this thing. So I'm gonna go to sculpt mode. I'm gonna use the inflate tool on the low settings, and then I'll turn on X mirror so that you'll see like little blue dots on both sides. This means it's copying on both sides. I'm just gonna inflate these areas a little bit so that the body isn't poking through, right? I'm just gonna change my view to 1. That should help get things more realistic. Okay, cool. So now I got this outfit with Nina's coat and Ling's lower body pieces, right? And what I need to do now is I need to transfer some weights. So whatever you're going to bring and put on your characters, you're going to need transfer weights, whether it's on the common or the unique. Another thing that I'll show you in the next set when I just do a unique mod, uh, this same base mesh body can be used for both of these setups. And I'll show you why in just a second. So if I take these weights, right, I'm going to go ahead and hit this and then hit shift, select the jacket. I'll switch to weight paint mode. We'll go to transfer weights. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead for this body and I want to apply all the shape keys because this is the shape of the body that I will be using. Okay, what did it say? Shape keys. It says the object has locked shape keys. Okay, so I must have hit locked on one of these. All right, this one. So let me hit the unlock button. Yep. Shape keys. There we go. Nice. And then I also like to hit A to select everything and then Control A and just set all transforms. Right. So if I made it bigger or smaller, everything is set to 0, so to speak. All right. But I digress. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to hold Shift, select this. The light colored one is the active one. And I'll go ahead and weight transfer. And it says that it's going to transfer data or weights from the selected mesh to the active one. So the selected mesh is the mesh that is in the dark orange, and the active one is the one in the light orange, and that's the one that's showing up here. But we're going to go ahead and hit transfer weights. The transfer weights section, we'll change this to nearest face interpolated. We'll set this to name. This will grab all of the weights from all these vertex groups, and you see that they all populated over here. And then we have it set to replace. So it's going to replace any weights that were already existing on here. Okay, cool. I'm also going to unparent all of these objects from their original rigs by hitting A, then parent, clear parent, right? And now I want to get rid of the rigs that I'm not using. And in fact, I'll just, for the sake of organization, I'll just delete all of these rigs, right? I'll hit X and I'll just delete. So now I have no rigs, nothing is parented, we're good. I still have the rigs that I'm going to be using right here. Okay. All right. Now we need to get the weights from this one, this body, to these shorts. So we'll hit weights, weight paint, transfer weights. It remembers your last settings and just applies the weights. And you're good to go. Right. And now you'll see that both of these have PRP and MSL, MUS, MSL weights. Same thing goes for this one. Blah blah blah. Same thing goes for the body. All right, cool. So with that being said, let's go ahead and see if it's actually working. So to do that, I'm going to unhide this. I'm going to just make sure the MSL is visible. I'll hit A to select everything. And then I'll hold Shift and then click on uh, the armature or the rig to make sure it's active. And I'll right click, Parent, Armature Deform. Don't use the other ones. They have different purposes. I'm not going to get into those right now. You can look them up on Blender. Um, but for now, all we want is armature deform. What that does is it parents the mesh to the rig, and it doesn't change anything, right? It just makes sure that they're all connected. So what that means is now I can pose it. I can go into pose mode. I can select some bones and I can move them around. And we see that the body and the coat, which are separate, are moving together, right? There's a leg, blah, blah, blah. Now, because the weights are on both of them, we're good. If they are not parented, like when I hit clear parent, you'll see that they don't work, right? So we're gonna go ahead and reparent those ones. Armature deform. Now it's all good. Okay, cool. I also want to make sure that I have the least amount of material set up as possible. So if I click on this jacket, go ahead and remove unused. And so for this jacket and for these pants, we just have one single mesh. And then for the body, we have skin meshes. Now, if it has a 0.002 or anything on the back end of it, then it will not, um, there is no material in the game that has this 0.002. So you'll need to change that and get rid of these two. If you have my tool, which is available on my GitHub as well, you can go to Quick Tools, and with that mesh selected, you can say Duplicate Material Cleanup, and then uh, where's it all? Okay, so I guess it's just not working right now for some reason. I don't know why. I don't think I've ever had that happen. Let's see. So duplicate materials. All right. What I might need to do, make this a little bit cleaner, is to fix my asset library so that it has the skins. But nonetheless, um, it will, you want it to not have any dots and zeros at the end of it. So let's go back into here. We'll go into pose mode, hit A, hit clear, and we've got our stuff now rigged to our body. Now, I'm not going to mess with any materials set up in Blender right now because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be referencing these materials in the game, right? So I don't need to actually do anything with these materials. I just need to make sure that the slots exist on the actual meshes. Another thing that's going to be very important if you're using models outside of uh, of of the game or whatever, um, if you decide to join two objects together or all of these together, you need to make sure that the UV maps are consistent. So, for example, this is UV0 and this has UV0 as well. If I wanted to join these, right, if I take this one and this and I join it, in this case, I have a UV map and these two different UV maps. But when I bring it into Unreal Engine, only one of these maps is going to be red, and that's going to be the top one. So I'll get some weird mapping of my textures, which I don't want. So I'm going to hit Control Z to go back, separate those two. If I do want to do that, I can duplicate this UV by just hitting plus. You'll see its default name is UV map, and then I can delete that one. Do the same thing here, and then delete that one. So now I can take all of these and just join them to one mesh if I want to. You don't have to, but if you wanted to, now they all have the same UV map, which is what you're going to want. And now all the materials and everything are all listed on one single mesh. So you have that option. Now, the cool thing about having the MSL and the PRP all on one single body to transfer weights is I can now switch to the PRP if I want to. So we'll hit our body, and I'm going to go ahead and clear parent. And now I'm going to hide the MSL, bring the PRP up, and I'm going to hold shift, or I'm going to hold the mesh, and I'm going to parent it to the the MSL or armature deform, and now it works on this one. If you do not have both sets of weights on your mesh pieces, then you will not be able to do this and whatever. Key thing to note is that they have different weights for different bones, um, and you'll need both of those sets of weights um, if you want to go in the future. What some people do is they'll download the MSL and the PRP. They'll create a mesh, and then they'll add weights to it from the MSL. Then they'll duplicate that mesh and then add weights from the PRP. You can do that as well, but for me, that's an extra step that I no longer need, don't want to do. I'd rather just have one option that I can do on repeat that is of no concern. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and I'm just gonna clear the parents real quick. And the next step is to get this out of the game. Now, any materials that you make to look at things in Blender are just what you see in Blender for the most part. We can get into some material manipulation in a little bit, but right now we're not messing with materials, so we're not going to do that. But we want to get this out. So I've got this on the MSL, and I want to make sure everything is parented. So let's do that again. Parent armature deform. What you're going to want to make sure is that you've got your rig on top. You've got your mesh below it that's showing up. It's in this folder, that's why it's lit up here and just shaded out here, but you can see that it's, if I select this one, they're selected, right? All right. You want to go into, you can go into your modifiers. You want to make sure you have this armature modifier. You want to make sure that the object is the proper MSL rig that you're going to be rigging it to, and that vertex groups is set. All right, cool. Um, yep. You can also go into this section here inside your object to make sure that the relationship, so you can see that this mesh parent is the MSL, parent type is object, uh, whatever. All right, cool, cool, cool. But the easiest way is just do the right click parent option in all honesty. So I'm going to select these two, right? Just as I usually only select the things that I'm going to be exporting at the time, and we'll go ahead and export an FBX. My settings for FBX, I created a preset called default common export. You can call it whatever you want to. I use the limit to selected objects option. If you do not have this, then it will try to export your entire scene into your FBX, which you don't want. I keep all these as default. All this is default. I have the forward set to negative Z forward and the Y up. That should be universal. I'm using 4.5 LTS. I've known that it has changed sometimes from the 2.8 or the 3 versions. So if your mesh comes into Unreal Engine and it's like sideways, you might need to adjust these to make sure it's right. I uncheck tangent space and I uncheck triangulate spaces, especially when I'm doing an MSL to PRP. The reason being is that when we get it into UE, we'll need to make sure the vertex count for both of the meshes that I bring in are exactly the same. And sometimes they're not for whatever reason, even if the mesh itself is completely identical, which it will be. Um, but I have found that when I turn these off, then we're good. I apply modifiers on, and I keep face on. As for armature, I don't really mess with these too much, but you do want to make sure that you do not have only the form bones checked, and you do not have add leaf bones. You can have animation checked on if you want to, but it's usually isn't an issue. We're not using it. Once you have this basic stuff set up, you can hit the plus sign to create your preset. And then once you do that, you'll be able to set it. And anytime you want to use that, that's all you got to do. Right. So it's kind of like a one-time thing. So if I go to projects, let's see, I should have a trash folder. Cool. I'm gonna call this demo full body MSL. Now, you do not have to name it MSL if you don't want to. You can name it whatever you want to. You can call it Jim, Bob, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can have it technical. Doesn't fucking matter. The naming is just the naming so that you understand it. I include the MSL at the end to make sure that I understand that this is on an MSL rig. Export it, and you're done. Right? You'll get a little error message if Blender doesn't like what you've done. So if that's the case, do whatever Blender says to fix it. I'm going to clear the parent, and I'm going to go to the full body PRP and do the same thing, right? Select it all. Make sure this is the last thing selected. Parent, armature deform, verify that they're right under here. Verify that the only things I have selected are the two things that I want. And we'll go to File, Export, FBX. And I'm just going to rename this one to PRP. And do it. Now, I didn't have to change my operator settings because they've already been set, but feel free to set them up however you want to. You're good. Right. Okay, so now I have this common setup mod that I just made. And in Blender, for the most part, I'm done. I don't need to do much else because I'm not doing anything with materials right now. So we can go ahead and get our Unreal Engine pulled up. So in Unreal Engine, okay, I have a lot of mods in here. These are the mods I'm actively working on. This was a demo I was working with somebody else. So I'll go ahead and delete this for now. Don't need it. Anytime you delete or move something, I suggest that you right click on your content folder and hit fix up redirectors just because it keeps things clean. I'm going to just call this demo. And I'll call this one 9999. What do I want to call this one? 8 demo. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and import those meshes. Now, in your project, you want to make sure that you have skeletons set up. Now, most of the projects that if you get from the we have a couple of Tekken projects that you want to use. You don't want to make your own project whenever you're modding for Tekken 8. We've got projects that are already created, and the reason why you'll do that is because these assets that we're going to use in a little bit only exist in our custom project. You get one straight off the Unreal Engine Marketplace, they will not have these. You will not have access to them, and you want those. You're going to need them for your mods. But I digress. So I've got this folder right here. I want to make sure that in my project, I have my MSL and PRP. And those are going to be located in your content, character, item, shared, skeleton folder. And you have this base MSL and this base PRP. Right? And this DIYB should also be there as well. This is for the females, for their chest movements, if you want to turn them on. But let's get back to the mod folder. If I import this, I'm going to grab these. You can grab them both if you want to and hit and open them up and check to see which ones are coming through. So this is the MSL, and so I will hit MSL for this. Oh. For settings, once you set these up, these will stay as well. So for the settings, all this stuff here is all default. I'll leave that, but make sure you have this set to import normals and tangents. If you go down, this is often checked. You do not want to create a physics asset until you need one, so I'll keep that one unchecked. If you go down a little bit more, there should be here, your material section. So I think I'm not sure where the default is set, but I have it set to search all assets. What that means is when my mesh is imported into Blender, if a material that is on my mesh, like a material name, exists in my project, it will automatically load it to that mesh. All right, so oftentimes what I'll do is I'll make sure I create the material first and then bring it in. Also, I have it set to do not create materials. I think by default it might. So I usually turn off import textures because I'd rather do that myself. And then I have it set to do not create materials because the materials they create may or may not work. So I would rather just do that myself as well. I'm going to actually cancel this process and we'll get to it in just a second, but I'm going to create my folders, right? So I name my folders by numbers. 0 is where I put my textures, which I don't have right now, but I will be messing with later. You can name your folders whatever you want to. 1 I use for my actual materials, so I'll create that. To create a material, um, you're going to right click, go down to material, and then go to material instance. Okay. If you open up your material instance, it's usually empty. It's either going to be a circle or square or whatever, and you're going to want to find a parent. Now, these parent materials, what we do in the game is use emulated materials, and you can get a material pack from 2 sources as well, at least that I know of. The project that you download might have materials already loaded, and if you want to check to see if they're loaded, you would go to, I want to say, common materials character. Is it these ones? No, it's not these ones. Um, character shared preset materials, right? And then materials, right? So I have a set of materials that I use um, for my projects that you'll see me use. I don't vary these a lot. I rely on my ability to create textures and things of that nature, so I don't need too many different options to work with. Um, I use pretty much like the basic character material for most things. Um, but Umin has created a super material pack that you can bring in, and that has, I think, all the material presets that exist in the game, or at least like the large majority of them. So you can use either or. I don't necessarily suggest to use both mine and his at the same time, just because they're built differently. Um, so I would suggest to use either his or mine, but they work essentially. Um, if you open them up, they'll look a little bit differently because we set them up differently. Um, but the same process is going to work for both. So if you want to check to see if they already exist in your game, you can do that. If you don't have them, you can go to like my GitHub or you can look on the Discord for those materials from Umin. All right, so let's get back to the actual mod. I've got my material here. I'm going to go to parent and I'm going to, I just type ITM because I'm looking for this super basic material right here, which I didn't actually select because, all right, so I'm just messing up my typing. MI, or let's see, ITM underscore LT. There we go. Okay, so I've got this basic material right here, and we've got these different slots, right? So base color is what we normally use. If you have a base color B for whatever reason, you can use that. Uh, because I'm going to be using this as a reference, I don't need to set up any of this. I'm going to rely on the game to load everything correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. But what I will do is I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to select this mesh or whatever mesh parts. I'm going to grab, I'm going to just copy the name from there. And I'm going to name this, oh, right? Then I'm going to do the same thing for this one. Copy it. And then I'm just going to duplicate this. Duplicate. Do that. All right, so now I have these basic material instances, not materials, but material instances in my game. Let's go ahead and save all, so that way if this shuts down, I'm still good. Now, these are going to need to get placed where they belong in the game. and I'll show you how that works in just a moment. But let's get our mesh in here. So I'm going to create another new folder, which I usually call 2, which I keep the actual meshes. Now, you do not have to have folders for each of your stuff. You can do it however you want to as a modder, but I would suggest that you keep them together. Um, yeah, so like I said before, if you hover over it, you can see which one it is. This one's an MSL, based on whatever you decided to name it so that you know what it is. Go ahead and import. Now I've got the PRP. I want to make sure the PRP mesh is in there. Import that. Okay, cool. So we've got our 2 meshes. The thing that I'm looking here is that the vertices and the triangles match for both of these. If they do not match, even by 1 vertice, it will cause the mesh to explode and look all crazy. You do not want that. So this says vertices are 26,522 and triangles are 44,684. I want to make sure that's the same for this one, which they are. So we're good to go. Let's go ahead and save all of these. Hit save. You'll also notice that if I open this up, that if I go to asset details, you'll see that these are already loaded. Okay, because I have these already in my project, then they automatically get loaded to the mesh. So it makes it a little bit easier. I don't have to go and manually do it. But if I wanted to do it manually or I didn't do it that way, I would grab this and place it where it needs to go. I can just drag and drop it. I can search for it by typing it in or just cycling through all this stuff. Or I can click on it and then hit this little arrow button to apply it. All right, so for example, if this was not set up like that, you can see that it has this gray texture on here, which is the default. Oh, let's get this a little bigger. Which is the default whatever. And I can just drop it on here. Now, I don't know if I can drop it on the actual mesh. Let's see if I can. No, I can't. Okay, cool. So, another thing to note is where things are located. So, like I was saying, we're going to use this as a reference. In order for the reference to actually work in your mod, it needs to be exactly where it's supposed to be. To know exactly where it's supposed to be, you'll want to look at fmodel to verify. So in this case, this is the female body skin. This is a generic skin. The game, I can tell the game to switch out this female body skin with whatever character is using it. So that's why I always use this one. I don't use this character specific ones unless I absolutely have to. I just use this one. So that way, if I put this on Azucena, then I get Azucena skin tone. If I put this on Nina, I get Nina's skin tone. If I put this on Kuni, I get Kuni's skin tone, etc., etc. Um, but the location is important. So let's say, here, I'm gonna grab this, copy. If I go into fmodel, let's go back to the top here, content, whatever. Go to packages, we'll go to search, and then I can paste it in here and look for it. What I'm looking for is the location of it, right? So it's in Polaris, content, character, item, shared, female, materials, MICH, female body. It's where the actual asset is, right? So what I need to make sure, and what you'll need to make sure is if you do not already have that material in your game, which I think you might with Uman's project. Um, I don't know off the top of my head. But if you don't, you want to check your project to see if it already exists. So we've got Polaris, we've got content, we've got character, and we've got item. Then we go down to shared, and then we open that up. We got female body, then we go to materials, and here's all of our materials, right? That's where they're supposed to be. If I open up one of these materials, close the preview image, you can see that it's going to tell you where it's at. Right? So that's a good thing. Sometimes they show up twice in here. I don't know why, but they're the same. Either way, uh, yeah. when you go into your mesh, if you hover over it, you'll see where it's located. So the game is going to reference that location for this material. That's why my materials in this version of my project do not have any colors or anything to them, because I don't need any of that. The game is going to load my mesh, look and see what I have loaded to this slot, look and see the reference to where it's going to look for it. And it's going to go into the game that already exists, and then it's going to apply that material. Now, same thing goes for these ones, except these are not in the right location, right? If I go into, if I select these and go into F model, let's go to search back again, go back into here, and I'll just type that in and hit it. We'll see that this location is not the same thing as this location, right? And we need them to be the same. So I need to go ahead and make sure that they are there. So, but first I need to make sure that even exists, right? So I have to make sure I got Polaris content, character, item, model, unique, rat. Let's see if I've got all that. So Polaris content, character, item, model, unique, right? And now I'm going to go all the way down to these different folders and hit rat. Go to rat, we keep following it through. So if you go back here, after rat, I've got full body. And I'm like, okay, cool, I've got full body. So let's go into there. But inside my full body, there's nothing. There's nothing here, right? But I need to now go to rat BDF1P. I don't have that. Since I don't have that, I just need to create it. So I'll create a new folder, call this one rat BDF1P. I think that's what it is. Let me just double check because I got bad short-term memory. So rat BDF underscore 1P, right? Then I'll go into here, create a, oops, my bad, I'm doing that. Delete. I'll go into here, create another folder called materials. One thing to note is that if you misspell this or any of this, or you don't include these folders, then the game will look wherever you tell it to look. And if it doesn't exist, or that path doesn't exist, then it just won't load anything. And you'll get that default checker texture in game. And you don't want that. So materials, is that it? That's it. And then I will put that material there. So I need to go back to my demo section. Oops. Back to where my mods are. And this was for her. And I'm going to grab this and I'm going to move it over here. Just hit move. Don't hit copy, hit move, right? If you hit move, then the reference also updates. So now when I go into here and look at rat, you can see that it is now where it's supposed to be. This one is still not. So I want to do the same thing. I want to make sure that I've got this in the right location. And references are very important. And they're very easy to use too, once you understand the process, right? So same thing, unique cow, full body. Let's see if we've got that. Then close this for now. Cow. Okay, so this one, I have to create more folders than I did before. So we got a cow, but I don't have a full body folder. So make full body. Then we've got cow BDF1P folder. And this syntax is very common, like character, category, and then the name. Right? And then materials. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and grab our, oops, where is that? This one, this material. Grab this, and I'm going to throw this here. All right, very nice. So Now, if I look at what I have, I've got 0 in my textures folder because I don't need any textures right now. I've got nothing in my materials folder because I put them where they're supposed to be, and now I just have my custom mesh in the folder I use for all my meshes. But now we need to create the next step of directives, I guess, to the game. And that's where we need to use our Polaris items. So I'll create another folder called free or whatever you want to. And I'm going to create 3 items. I'm going to create a Polaris base character item, BCI. And because this is going to be a custom item, it does not need to be the same name as anything in the game. Right? So I'll call this BCI, and then I'll call this CF0, which is the name for the common stuff, the way the devs use. I'll say BDF because it's a full body, which is like body full. That's kind of what that stands for. And then I'm going to say demo outfit. Outfit. There we go. So demo outfit. I like to start with the BCI because I'll just copy the name, and now I'll create a CI item. So Polaris customize item, and I'll just paste it there. And it doesn't like it to match, but then I can just delete the B. Now it's named that way. Now the names, once again, doesn't matter. You can name this whatever you want. You can call it BCI, you can call it CI. You don't have to though. That is completely up to you. Whatever's going to keep you organized. I do it this way because the game does it this way, and it helps me stay organized by emulating what the game is doing. And then we got our Polaris base item. Same situation. I'm going to go ahead and paste it, but I'll delete the C this time, and now good. Save all. I'm going to close this for a second. And then the last piece is going to be our IP. So IP, now the IP is going to need to be specific. So I'm just going to call this IP demo for now. We'll figure out what IP we want to put it on in a little bit. But we're going to open up the IP, and we're going to have 3 slots. One for your base item, your base character item, and your customized item. Now your BCI typically doesn't need to have anything filled out. You'll see in the game that they set up the fighter IDs, but I personally have never seen where including or not including the fighter ID made a difference at all. I have no idea why they're there or what they're used for, but using that, I have not had any issues at all. Now, that being said, sometimes you might want to use the game's BCI. If you use the game's BCI for a model, can. I'm not going to go into that right now, but you would need to use it then as a reference where you would create it, make sure it's named the same as it is in game, and then find where it's supposed to be in the game using fmodel and make sure you have that same setup in your project. But I digress. Now, I need to load this into here, so I'm going to slide it over, and you'll see that it will not let me put it where it doesn't belong. So I'll set it right there. BI will go where that goes, and the CI will go where that goes. Now my IP is set. When I change the name, it's not going to change what's inside. I usually set that up right away so that I'm good to go. Like I said, the BCI doesn't need anything filled out. The CI, I am not doing anything colorable right now. Because I'm not doing anything colorable right now, I don't need to mess with the CI. So I'm going to leave this blank as well. When you have a blank CI that doesn't have anything filled out, you will not be able to color anything, and it will only use the default materials that you have set to your character in their base form, right? Which is what I want for right now. The BI, you will have to do a couple of things. Your item position ID. Each category in customization has its own ID. The ID for the full body is 6. And if we go to my GitHub, I believe I have them listed here somewhere. All right, so in my info dump, all the way at the bottom, I have your set item position ID table. You can see where they go. So for full body, it's 6, right? I was doing an upper body, that's 14. Lower body is 15. Shoes is 16. Extra items, head item, etc., etc. those are important. So you can set it to 6. Um, and now I need to set up my MSL and my PRB. So my muscle rig, my proportion rig, we'll go ahead and grab those. They'll need to be in the right places. If you get them swapped, which you can, I can have these doubled up. That will most likely cause me issues. I've never actually done that, but it should cause issues. Now, if I'm not putting in the DYB asset, or I don't have it in my file for whatever reason, I can just skip it. But if I do, which I do, you would go down here into the Phoenix section, go to Phoenix Bone Binaries item, hit the plus sign, open up your index, go to your data, and usually you're not going to have a lot of these in your file, so just click the one that's there. Once again, this has to be in the right location for it to work, which it is, and so that's set. Now at the very bottom, if this is going to be a common item, what the common item button does is this tells the game to load the proper skins for whatever character this is going to go onto, right? You don't have to set anything for it to make that happen, so to speak. If this is not set, then it will actually load the female body items. I believe it will also let you use these character specifics if you want to use those, which might be important depending on how you're doing your mod. But I digress. I would suggest use the common item and the generic MIs until you get comfortable with the overall process. Make things extra, right? All right, so we're going to go ahead and save that. My BI, it's pretty simple. It's done. It's ready to go. We'll hit save all. Make sure everything is saved. Okay. The next thing I want to do is create a data asset, right? So I'll create a data asset, and then I'm going to create a primary asset label. Oh, search for it, find it, select. You can name it whatever you want to, all right? I'm going to name it consistent with my project, right? So I'll just call it 998 demo. Go ahead and open that up. You'll set your priority. It can be anything above 1. I'm just using 101 just for the sake of it. I've used 1, 2, 3 in the past. Those have all worked fine as well. You just don't want it to be 0, okay? The game stuff is at 0. Anything with a higher priority, the higher the number, the more likely would override something, right? So you can make it 101. I don't know what the highest number is. I don't know if it tells me. It doesn't, but I use 101 these days for whatever reason. My chunk ID, I usually name based on whatever name I gave my folder, but you could choose whatever chunk ID that you want. I suggest anything over 500 because that'll keep you outside of the realm of the dev patches, but how you name these is up to you. All right, so I use 9998. Apply recursively. Don't do this unless you know exactly how it works, because it can make things kind of painful. And it's, yeah, don't do it. Or don't do it till you know. You don't need to do anything with the available at runtime. You will need to make sure your cook rule is set to always cook. And then I use the label assets in this directory. What this does is it means that everything in the folder where my primary asset label exists will be included in the mod that I cook. So this mod will include anything in this folder, anything in any of the subfolders. And a subfolder is essentially this folder, right? And if I were to create another folder in here, then that would be a subfolder of this folder, et cetera, et cetera. I want all of those included in my mod. Now, I'm going to need to include other assets as well. And I can do that typically, I can do it a couple of different ways. In this the newest project, you have these options. In older projects, you don't have those options. But in the current project, you do. So if I want to say assets to be included, I can go ahead and click on this, and then I can add an asset. So in this case, I can add the IP, right? I can add the IP. And then I need to get my other stuff, right? Because it's not in this folder and it's not included in my mod. I need to go grab them from somewhere else. I need to grab those two. Well, actually, no. I digress. Let me correct myself. Because I'm using the two materials as a reference and not as a custom material instance, I do not want to include those in my mod. So anything that's going to be reference only, you want to make sure it is not in your mod, or else the game will replace that item with whatever you have in your folder. And if you haven't set it up, like I haven't set up my materials, then I'll just get a jacked up material in game instead of the actual material in game. So the only thing I'm going to need to include in here is going to be my IP, right? So we'll hit save. We're good. Another option that you can do that I tend to do more if you watch my up-to-date stuff is I'll go down here to collections, which is usually not expanded, and then hit plus, and I'll create a local collection, and I'll usually name it the same thing as my ID, like 9998. And then what I will do is anytime I have an asset that is outside of this folder, like this IP, I'll just drop into that collection, right? I can then go to this add a asset collection and I can drag down and find that. The reason why this is a powerful thing is that I can add it whatever I want to into this folder. It doesn't change where it's located in the project, anything else of that nature. I can have all kinds of different types in here. And if I want to get rid of something, I can just right click and say remove from 998. Do not hit delete. If I hit delete, it will actually delete it from wherever it is. So I can hit remove instead, like this. Boop, it's gone. It's no longer included. Um, and I can add it back whenever I want to. Oh, nice. And yeah, so that's good. You could do that with all of your stuff if you wanted to. If you didn't want to have any folders, you just wanted to put all of this stuff. Uh, let's see if I hit underscore. Let's see, what could I S or something? Like if I wanted to grab all of these and drop them into there, then I could do that as well. But I don't. So since I already have this, grabbing this, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Oh, one of the things is if you delete it or you remove it or whatever, um, just make sure it's deleted, right? If I clear it, this arrow on many of the sections will just empty it. I don't want to have this empty slot, right? I want this either have something in it or not. So if I don't have anything in it, I want to make sure it's deleted. If you hit the trash can, it would delete all of your indexes. So if I had a bunch of indexes like this and I hit trash can, they're all gone. So if I don't want to delete all of them, then I would just select them individually, etc. All right, but I'm going to use this. This also allows me to not ever have to come back into this once I have it set up. Right, so now I know automatically that whatever's in this folder and whatever's in this folder, this collection will be in my mod, no matter what I do. So I need to find what I want to replace this with, right? Let's do that. So I'm going to demo this on Kuni, the newest character. Now, even though Kuni does not have any common setup um, stuff for her made by the devs, we can still use the common setup because she is using the common setup for all of the common items. Um, so that's a plus that we get to have to work with. But I'm going to go into character, I'll go into item, we'll go into item prefab. Now I'm going to find that character and we're going to look at her BDF, which is her full body stuff, and see what I want to place. So you've got typically 1P is your default. 2P is the default whenever the 1P is selected. So um, normally you can't manually pick the 2P, I think unless you're using like a custom item set, like the default presets that are up there in the game for the full bodies. So usually I don't mess with this one at all. Is there a way to set it back to? Oops. All right, whatever. Uh, she got these are the different ones they have, like Halloween, armor, Miko, school uniform. I'm gonna use this. Let's use a school uniform. So I like to copy paste everything, or I could just write it. But because I have a bum eye, I don't like to write things if I can copy paste them. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste this and put this here. All right. Cool. So you also see that this has updated, right? Because I made a change to something inside of it. When you see this little arrow, just go down here, right click, and hit save. Make sure everything is good. I typically will also go up here and hit fix up redirectors as well, just to make sure uh, things remain where they're supposed to be. But this needs to go to its home. If I go back to F model, I need to make sure I know where it's hanging out at. So this is going to hang out at character item prefab, KER for Kuni, then BDF, and then it's just dropped right in there. So, and like I said about references, if I look at this and hover over it, you can see that the path is game active mods 998 demo 3. We don't want that. We want it to be where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to find it, right? So item prefabs, go down to KER, go BDF, and I may already have it. I may not. I don't know. So let's see. Uh, Here we go. School uniform, right? So this I already have a version of it in here that's empty. I can either fill this and then include this in my mod, or I'll delete it. So okay, save all, and now let's go and grab it and put it in there. Right. So this one actually has stuff inside of it. If I go down here, we'll do the same thing. Save. Make sure I right click, accept directors. Usually save all again, just for the sake of it. If I click on this and go in here, you'll see that it is now in game character item prefab KER BDF, which is where I believe it's supposed to be. We're good to go. So at this point, I'm done with this particular mod. I don't need to do anything more with it. Uh, let's go back up here just to double check. So I've got no textures because I'm not messing with textures. I've got no materials because they're going to be used as references. Um, I do have my custom meshes because those are new to the game, right? Those need to be in there. And now I've got my BCI, BI, and CI, which are all custom, so they need to be in my mod. The IPs are not here because they are hanging out in their home where they belong, right? I've got my data asset with a priority that is above 0. I've got a chunk ID as to whatever I set it. We're going to grab all assets in this directory to make sure I'm including whatever I add in here. And then I've got my local collection listed right here. So if everything was done correctly, then I should be good to go. I'm going to go up here to platforms, and you can use package project using project settings, or which should be set to shipping, or you can use shipping manually, or you can create a project launcher, which is what I do, or what I've done recently to make my packing much quicker. I've got this little speedy profile, which I'll go over at some point in the future. But either way, if you don't have something like this set up, you'll just use Windows Package Project. And then I'll launch it. And this usually takes about 5 minutes to get done. Okay, so while that's doing its thing, let's go back to Blender and see how this is set up. Now, if I want to see how the textures look, and then maybe I want to make some changes to those textures, I can grab them from FModel. So if we go back into here, and we're going to get out of the item prefab section, we're going to model section, we'll go to unique, and let's start with, so we'll go to the jacket. We're at 1P BDF. I can close these ones. We'll go to meshes, not meshes. We'll go to materials. Nope, not materials. We'll go to textures. And what I'm looking for are the jacket textures. So I'll just hit jacket, get these. So I'm just gonna shift select all of these, right click, and then save textures. And here they go. So now I can open this up. Now I've got a folder where all the textures are located. Nice. So down here, or to wherever your windows are, you want to create a shader texture node. I'm actually going to create this one over here. So I'm going to go up to the corner and I'm going to pull out a window like so. I'm now going to change this window to a shader editor like so. All right. Now, this jacket is set to use, doesn't have use nodes turned on. Up here, use nodes is not turned on. We click it on here or down here, it makes it so that we can use these BDF nodes. Right? We're going to grab our textures here, and you can select all of them and just drop them in. At least you can do that in 4.5. Most likely everything above 4.5. But yeah, we're going to change our view to the viewport shading one, and now we're going to try to link this stuff up. So we've got C. C is typically our color map. So if I click that into base color, you'll see that there's no actual color on it. And we would need to use an ID setup to work with that, which we can go over in just a moment. We also have a normal map. If I just click my normal map and plug it in, it doesn't really, like it's there, but it's not really doing exact. You can see it's kind of shiny like that because that's not how it's supposed to work. In Blender, if you want to see how it's supposed to look, you'll hit Shift A and you would go to, I usually hit S for search, and then I'll type in normal map. Get that. Now you'll plug it in, and then you turn your sRGB off. No color. All right, and now you'll get the normal map sort of the way it's supposed to be. However, Blender and Unreal Engine use normal maps differently for whatever reason. And the only difference is one channel. So I have a node that I use called normal adjust. And if we go into this node, I can show you how it works. And I can actually, let's pull it out real quick. Copy that. Now this is a node group to make things look very nice and clean. But if I was going to do it outside of that, or just not paste it, yep, here we go. Basically, I have a separate color node that this would go into. This separate color node, and then I would have a combined color node. So it separates the RGB channels, and now I'm going to combine the RGB channels. But now I'm going to use an invert color node, invert the green channel. Then that output will go into my normal map. And then my normal map will go into the normal. And then you'll get the way it's actually supposed to look. In some cases, it's not super noticeable. In other cases, it is. And depending on what you're doing, if you're just going to be using that normal map without any changes, and it's from a UE game, you can change it in Blender so that way you can see it the right way. But when you actually bring it over into Unreal Engine, you would use the in-game one without any changes. If I were to bake this normal map in Blender and then bring it over to Unreal Engine, I would then need to flip the green channel back within Unreal Engine. So if you see me doing that during any of my stuff, that's what I'm doing. Now to make this less messy, I turn this into a node group, which allows me to just plug this into that color. And now I can use this flipped normal map here and it will work. If I use the regular normal map as it sets, you can see that there is parts that don't necessarily look right. Okay, cool. So that one is plugged in. There is an OBD map, an RMA map, and a TSE map. So these are channel packed maps. Basically what that means is, let me move these down a little bit, is that each of the channels, the RGB and sometimes A, have specific things set up to them. So let's go ahead and open up a window. So I'll close that for now. And we're going to make, we'll look at the image editor, right? Okay, so if I click on that, you see that that's what the OBD is. I'm going to switch this to channel packed, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it. So for the OBDs, we've got opacity, like an opacity mask. We got B, which isn't really used for anything, and then we have D for dirt. So if we look at the channels individually, that opacity, there's no holes or breaks in this particular model, so that's not really going to be used for anything. If we look for B, it's usually empty except for certain types of materials. And then we have our dirt. So this is what kind of dirt will show up as the character gets dirty in the game. You can kind of see how it would actually play out. If I hit Shift A, hit S to search, I can hit separate color. All right, I'll plug this in, and I can see what each of those will look like. So there's our opacity map, not really showing any holes in anything. This is this, which is usually empty, just straight black, and then this is dirt. Right? You see, the jacket gets dirty in those spots. If you are not using an OBD map, like you don't have any dirt, you don't have any uh, opacity issues or whatever, then you can use a straight red, full red texture map, which pretty much would just be like full opacity, nothing in the B and nothing in the blue. All right, so I can leave that undone. I'm not going to have any issues. All right, cool. Normal map, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and just make these small and put it out the way. So a similar thing for all of this. The RMA map is one that's actually going to matter for you and one you would probably want to create. I'm not going to get into that too much right now, but we'll just do a quick setup of it. Shift A, search, separate color, this channel pack. If I look in here, so the RMA is roughness, metallic, and ambient occlusion. So if we look at our roughness map, that's what a roughness map looks like. This is what the metallic map looks like. And this is what our ambient occlusion map looks like. So if I want to see how they would look on the actual texture, then I'm going to do this. So I said R is for roughness, so plug that in. All right, you'll see that the shine from this leather jacket starts to show up. We'll hit M for metallic. And now the parts that are supposed to be a little bit more metallic will be, but there's not really a lot of metal in this particular outfit. And then AO is typically blended with your color map. So you can use Shift A, search, mix color, and you can use a multiply or an overlay. I usually use multiply at 50%. And I'll have my color or diffuse texture plugged into the top, and then I'll plug the other one at the bottom. And you'll see that that gives it kind of its depth, some shadow stuff. If I hit M, you can turn it off and on. So you can see the difference when you have an ambient occlusion map on versus when you don't. So you can either bake it into your texture, or I can show you guys how to um, convert it into another one. But I won't do that till a later video. I don't want to get too in the weeds. But that's kind of the way you're going to set up all of your utility maps, so to speak. So TSE is translucency, specular, and emissive. This one particularly doesn't have anything in it. Or let's see if we look at it. So translucency is empty. Specular has a little bit of specular in here. So we can apply that if we want to see what that's supposed to look like. Smell alpha, this one. And specular is right here, and you'll plug this into the IOR level. And there you go. You want to see the difference, turn off, on. It's not a huge difference, but there is a difference in how it works. Right? Cool. So let's see if this is done, which it looks like everything worked out. There we go. Package complete. Done. Now, I have, in this particular setup, I have my stuff going here to this location. All right. So if I hit copy, let's go ahead and go to our project. All right, so wherever your project is saved, you want to find out where your mod went to. So if we go to your project, wherever it's saved, mine is here. Typically, this is what the default location is. And once it actually packs it, you'll go to Windows, Polaris, Content, Packs, and then these will be all of your mods that get packed. With my specific setup, mine's a little bit different. So I go to Saved, Staged Builds, Windows, Polaris, Content, Packs, and mine is just set to whatever is in my active mods folder. That way it doesn't take a long time to cook things, and I'm good to go. So your mod will need to consist of these three files. If you're not getting these files, you can check my GitHub for the starter guide, and it will show you how to set up your project if it's not already set up, so that you get these whenever you cook. All right, cool. But these are your mod, right? So if I want to go ahead and place those, I'm going to go to my mods folder. Now your mods folder is going to be in your Tekken 8 in Steam, Polaris, Content, Packs. This is where all of your game files are, but you want to create a separate folder for mods. So you have mods. And then within that folder, you could put other folders. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'll call it 9998 demo. I'll say Kuni school uniform. Right? Open that up. Now I'm going to grab these, and I'm just going to copy them and paste them in here. Now I need them to all say underscore pack at the back of it. You can rename them to whatever you want to. In this case, I'm just going to hit F2 with them all selected. And then at the end of this, I'm going to put underscore P. And that way it changes all of them. If they all have the same name, this works. If they don't, I don't think it works the same way. But you want to make sure all of these have an underscore P, and that all of these are in your mods folder, so that they're essentially loaded to the game. But if you're at this point, I'm pretty sure you already know all of that at least. So now it's time to see if it actually worked, right? So let's go and open up Tekken. Now my controller has somehow messed up, so I haven't been able to play Tekken, so I'm just modding. Um, So I need to get a new controller so I can figure things out. Give me 1 second. Doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo-doo. So my stuff is probably going to be a little bit slow because I got everything running off of SSD right now, like an external and not on my actual desktop. It shouldn't take this long. And then when I'm running all of this other stuff like Blender, Unreal Engine, Streamlabs, it tends to be a little bit longer. All right, so I'm just going to let that load. And while I let that load, we'll go back over here. Okay, so a lot of times people ask, like, okay, this is a black and white. How do I? Oh no, I like it color things. I think that's what I'll go over in just a second after we test this. All right, there we go. Kuni. Now I think I have my settings on like really high end, which is not gonna do me any justice right now for the amount of load I'm putting on my PC. So I'm gonna switch that real quick, like medium. So switch to medium. Okay, so let's take a look and see if this worked. And what I didn't check to see is if I can just access the school uniform on its own. So without my controller, I don't know if I can do that. I bought a new USB-C cord, so I'm going to try that in just a little bit. It's just that my Bluetooth portion is acting all funny. Okay. Well, this was a test model that I was working on. But we're going to go to entire body with school uniform and see if it doesn't break. All right, there we go. Look at that. So we've got and I can't really, there's no physics on this thing because they're not set up. Anytime you bring stuff in, if it had physics on it in the game, but you turned it off, then that's what you run into. So I'm going to model viewer, see what some of these animations look like. There we go. Looks like it works pretty good, right? There we go. I mean, so that's how I would get it in using the references, right? So in this case, we reference the materials so that the materials just come in at their default level, right? That's her black jacket and that's her black pants for leg. Works pretty good. Let's see what more we can do. So we'll go ahead and save and exit. Oh, sure. All right, cool. So now let's mess around with the IDs a little bit. And I might, I'm going to see if I can bypass the Blender stuff for a second. Um, but let's go ahead and plug this in so I can see what the IDs look like. So there's the IDs. The IDs you want to set to channel packed, see it the right way. And we want to try to understand how IDs work, which is probably one of the more confusing parts for people to understand. Um, because even other games that I've seen use a much more simple setup for their IDs. Um, but let's see, let's take a look. So let's go back into F model to try to start with this. Let's go to our materials and we've got this jacket material. So we're going to open up the jacket material, right? In F model. Can I move this out more? Yep. Okay. So one of the first things you want to understand is the split number per channel. This tells you what IDs are being used in this particular um, material. And if I look at it, it says R4, G1, B0, and A0. So what that means is I've got 4 different values of ID in my red channel. I've got 1 in my green, none in my blue, and none in my alpha. So if I select, let's take a look and see if we can find them all, right? So we'll select this, and I'm just going to Control I to select everything else and hit H to hide. And so now I've got this, right? And now let's go ahead and open up the ID map. So if we go into the red, we will see that we should have 4 different values. So we've got full white, we've got this light white, we've got this color, and then we've got this color, right? And these are all different shades of red, right? And then if we go into green, we've got these areas here. Now, if we go into the UV editor, um, and we select, we'll turn this on. This is synchronized. Then we should be able to see where those items are. So you can see that it's like on a belt area. Or to select this, find out where it's selected. I can be like, oh, okay, cool. This is over here. And we see that there is green on that belt area. This area right here is all of this, but this is in the red channel. So we go back into the red channel and we'll see that the overall jacket is using this wide gray area. This, I think, is the interior of the jacket. So if I go in and look, yep, see it's the interior of the jacket. I'll select on these. These are buttons. Oops, I don't want to move those. Right, and then these are the metal pieces, I believe, for her belt buckles or something, which are somewhere. I don't know. Oh, there we go. All right, cool. So I have a couple of different nodes that I've used for um, for this purpose. So I'm gonna go ahead and load one. Um, okay, so I don't have it here. I'm trying to think of where I have it. I'm gonna go ahead and append another project. So let me get out of edit mode and I'm gonna go to File, Append. And Append allows you to grab parts from other blend files and just essentially direct import them into your current blend file. Um, So I think I have a startup blend. I think this one, use version 4. And I'm looking in this case for my node tree, where my node groups are, see what I've got. Okay, so these are different ones that I've created. So I have a TH shader basic. I have an ID color set. I've got these as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit A, and I'm going to append all of these to this current project. What that does is it now gives me access to all of those groups right here, right? So if I hit Shift A, go down to group, I can get to these groups. Um, I believe my starter project is updated on my GitHub. I'll double check after the end of this stream to make sure that it is. But that way you guys can access these as well. Um, the way this works is this is a node group for IDs. So what I'll need to do is I'll have to separate this, right? So I'm going to hit separate color. So, and this is set up to red right now. I'm going to plug the red into the channel section. And let's go ahead and just plug this directly into here. All right, so now everything is set to black because it's set default as black. So color 1, I should be able to change. Right, and I don't know what that is. Okay, so there's the blue. So let's make this like red for that one. Let's make this one green so I can see where it's at. There we go, green. We'll make this one blue. I can see the inside. Right, and then this one, let's make it yellow. There we go. Right, so I've got this. This is where I could essentially start to adjust the coloring. Now to adjust the coloring, go ahead and plug this back in for the gray. I'll use a mix color node. So I hit Shift A, search mix color. And you can use multiply or overlay. Let's start with overlay. And I'm going to set this as the base color. And then we'll go ahead and set this to 0 for a second. And plug this into here. Oops. Plug this into this one. I'm going to go ahead and plug my ambient occlusion back up in there real quick. Okay, and now I can take this color out and put it to this one. Now, because the factor is 0, you don't see any difference. Factor 0 is A, factor 1 is B. Okay, if this was a mixed node, you'd see that it's a lot more direct. It's either a blend of the two or whatever. But we're going to use a multiply. This is what the multiply would look like. Overlay is sometimes a little bit better in keeping some of the natural tones. But that's only going to matter really if you're baking. I usually use this just to get a good idea of how things are supposed to look or what they're supposed to look like. And also what colors I want. Like, so let's say I want this jacket to be, let's do this. We'll do this, make it darker, dark color jacket, like nice and purple. Or let's make it red. Let's try to get some Kuni colors in here since I got it on Kuni. So we'll up the red, maybe that, make the value down a little bit more. Get something like that. These green buttons, let's make those, let's see, maybe like a yellow. No, I don't like yellow. Let's see, maybe like a brown. Yep, we'll make those brown. Um, what other colors we're working on? We got this belt clasp in the back. Let's make this white. So, or maybe I'll make it brown as well. So let's make it a darker brown. Um, Almost want it to be bronze colored. Okay, cool. All right, nice. And then we have, I think the interior color is blue. Let's make that, I don't know, make it more red colored, I guess. I can't really see it that well, so we're good there. Right. So that would be that jacket. Um, but let's say we want to make some adjustments to the roughness, right? Let's say we want the jacket piece to be a different kind of roughness, right? So I can use this split with this four color to affect the roughness as well, using more mixed color nodes and adjustments. So I'm going to shift D and we'll use say a mixed node, so to speak, right now. And I know that I want this jacket color, which I believe is this one. Yep, so Control Z. Okay. Another thing that you can do is to say you have a nice color setup that you want, but you don't really want to change it. You just pull it out, set a different one to it, right? Say I want to test it to make sure I know which one I'm working with, then unplug it so it goes back to default. I can do that. All right, but color 4, so ID 4. We're going to go ahead and set this at the factor. And what this does is it isolates this this color area, right? So I'm going to set the original to black and this to white. When I plug this in here, it's not working. Why is it not working? Hold up, let's see. Is it not working? Why isn't it working? Let's see. This one working? Oh, okay. Oh, these numbers are backwards. I'm gonna have to fix that at some point. Or they are and they aren't backwards, but nonetheless, I need ID1 is usually the darker color, and it goes where ID4 is the lightest color, and ID1 is the darkest color. I don't know why it's like that, but that's how it is um, within the game, and that's consistent across the different levels because the values change between 1, 2, 3, and 4 um, within a channel. But ID1 will always be the darkest option available, and ID4 will always be, or and whatever the highest ID being used will be the lightest. But I digress. So let's go ahead and plug this into here. Plug this back into here for a second. Kind of see what we're working with. And say I want this to be a lot more rough, right? Right now it's all shiny. Things are shiny, and I don't want them to be shiny. So I'm going to grab the in-game roughness, which, because it's RMA, is the red. I'll plug it into the top. Okay? And now let's plug this back into colors or whatever. And now let's plug this into our roughness instead. Now you'll see that the roughness for the other things has remained the same, but for this, it is different. Full white means full roughness, and then I can change the degree. I can make it even more shiny than it was before, or I can make it less shiny. I want to make it a little bit less shiny than it was, but I also want to make these buttons a lot more shiny. And I wish it was a cleaner way to set all this stuff up. Um, that was easier, but there's not as far as I'm aware of. So for these buttons, right? These buttons, which I think are this ID here, ID2, I want to work with those. So, like I said, this is backwards. So ID2 is actually ID3, I guess, in this one. So I'll hit Shift D to create a new one of these. Just try to make sure this is set to 0. Plug this in. Okay. And so because this is set to 0, and it's just taking what's already in before, there's no real change. I'm going to change this factor and make it 3. And now I can play with buttons. And as you can see, I can make these buttons more shiny than they were before. Right? As shiny as possible, or just slightly plastic, etc. Let's see. Another thing is, say this clasp down here. Maybe I don't want it to look like that. Maybe I want it to be really metal. I can do pretty much the same thing, right? We'll grab this one, but this color is that one, right? Perfect. So that would be ID4, and I'm set that to the factor. But we'll grab our metallic this time, plug that in the top, then plug this into my metallic, right? And now I can increase metalness. So now the metalness for this one is a lot more. If I want it to be really shiny, um, I could do same thing here, right? Plug this in, grab this ID4 as my factor, and now I can turn roughness all the way off, right? All the way off, and then we'll make sure this is all white, and we'll make sure this is all the way on. That's pretty much as shiny as I can make it. If I want to stand out a little bit more, I can maybe experiment with maybe a more gold color. Okay, and so these are some of the ways that you can manipulate the colors in Blender and then bake out new texture maps to go along with it. But I'm going to go ahead and save this for a second. I'll save. Where to go? This. So I could bake out these new textures and just use them as is in game. Or I should be able to go into Unreal Engine and use those textures that I put out. Now, before I do that though, I want to make sure my textures are properly set up. So we'll go Photo P, which is essentially an online Photoshop. I'll zoom out, there we go. And I want to open up those textures. I don't know where they are. I think I might be able to drag and drop them. Let's see if that'll work. All right, I don't want to drag and drop them. Oh, it dragged all of them in. Not what I want. Just say something like this. All right, so I'll grab my ID like this. And what I want to do is make sure it has a proper alpha. So to do that, I'll go to channels and then I will add a new alpha channel. I want my alpha channel to be blank. And then I want to make sure they're all selected, right? So I don't want just the alpha, and I want just the RGB. I'm gonna hold shift to make sure all of these are selected. I'll do it. Let's go export as, and I'll usually export it as a TGA. and I'll make sure the extra channel has opacity. Then I hit save. And instead of saving it there, I'm going to save it in my projects. And we'll just call it new and hit save. Now let's go into UE and let's load some of these textures up. So I'm going to go into this folder here, and I'm going to load all of these. Open. Now the ID one, if I open it up, this is the original ID. You'll see that the A is not selected. Now, there was an option that we were using where we went to alpha and set the alpha to 0 so that we had a blank alpha channel, which does work in most cases, but it doesn't always give the best results in my opinion. So I'm going to re-import with a new file, and I'm going to grab uh, the one we just made. Trash. Now, if I open this one up, this one does have an alpha channel built in by default. If I go to alpha here, you'll see that it's still set to 1. So, and that's kind of what we want. We also, we can clean up these textures later, but let's go ahead and see how this all works in the game or on an actual material. So if I go to this, if I go, not to my MSL, but if I open up the jacket, right, I've got these different materials. Right now they're set just as a pass through, so it's just defaults. But what I want to do is start to see what things would actually look like. So I'm going to go to the ID map and turn that on. And now I'm going to go into here and grab my ID map and just drop it in. All right. I'm also going to go down here to split number, and I'm going to fix this. I want this to look just like a game. All right, now all my IDs are set to whatever. Now, as you can see, when I change these colors around, things are changing. But it's not changing necessarily the way that I want them to. Let's take a look at our different color setup. So if I want to set, see, ID 1, right, which would be the same thing as ID 4. I'm going to go ahead and grab this hex color, come over, and I'm going to drop that into here. Now I've got that color, but I don't think it's working exactly the way it's supposed to. So let's go back to our texture and let's turn sRGB off. That should make a difference. Yes. So now we see that it's starting to look more like it's supposed to, right? If I go into here, we can also see that now the color is being applied to uh, the object, right? We're not getting any really cool normals or anything like that because we don't have the other textures set up, but we can do it pretty easily. Right? Like I said, you only need to do this part if you're going to be making some changes that you want to get seen. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add these pieces in. You got to make sure they're turned on to work. So the TSC, the RMA, the OBD, like this stuff, we'll just drop this in. Go. OBD, I'll drop that in. RMA. See, it's like that. And then TSE, like that. Save. See that there's the jacket with the new colors set to it. I'm going to go ahead and translate those colors over real quick. And I didn't set up the green. I don't know where the green is at. Oh, it's the little pieces on the on here. Now, if I want to add the color for the green, I can use another one of these. I'll switch this to 1. Right? And I'm going to feed the color in, and then feed the color out. And I'm going to hit green, go into that channel. And then, I guess, what is this changing? Okay, so this is changing this metal piece, like so. All right, it's not a really big change, but it is what it is. Let's see, back color. I get here. All right, nice. But yeah, so that's how we get set colors. Uh, I can copy them over, or I can kind of work directly. Like so, let's see if I separate this. Right, I've got a window where I can see it. It's halfway. And then let's go into this window. Set this over here. That way I can just kind of see what I'm working with. So I've got ID 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I don't even remember the numbers, I can just look at it like this and say, okay, what's being changed? Like, oh, that's the inside of that one. Like, cool, let's make that black in this instance. Let's go to, say, okay, look at ID 3, which is another color. I believe this is like the belt on the back of her. I think. Okay, for whatever reason, ID3 doesn't want to respond, or I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay, ID3 doesn't want to respond for some reason. ID4 are these belts, are these loops. All right, but you kind of get the point. Now, if I do this, right? Right, so so I've changed this all up, right? Okay, so I've got all these textures in here. I've kind of changed this up a bit and say this is what I want the default to be, and I don't want it to be colorable. I can um, I can do one of two things. I can close these out. I can go into where that new material is. And because I'm using a collection, actually, let's go find the material real quick. If I want to find the material, I can go over here and click this little search button. It'll bring me to the material. And I can just drag and drop this into here, right? And now you'll see it's located in this section. We'll hit save all. I'll do the redirectors real quick, fix up redirectors. just to make sure. Save all. Um, so now I can just drop it into here. So now the game will look for, it'll look to replace this material um, with this new one. And this will be the default colors for it. Now, I looked at these setups in Blender, but I don't necessarily have to if I can get the materials in from the game. So if we do the same situation, but we're going to look at Ling stuff. She's a rat. Rat. And we look at her textures, and I believe hers are for her spats. They're for her spats. All right, we're going to go ahead and save these textures. Oh, one thing to note though, um, this, if I look at this material right now, right, these textures are located in my active folder. So they're going to be included in my mod, right? The material might still be where it's supposed to be, but the textures are in my mod. If I put these textures somewhere outside of that and I didn't reference them in my project or something else of that nature, then they would not show up in the mod in the game. So that's an important thing to realize as well. Like where you place things and decides where things actually end up and where they go. A lot of times when things don't load, it's more so they're just not where they're supposed to be for whatever reason. So let's go ahead and open this up. And I'm going to keep with the practice of keeping those materials in here. And grab these, bring them in. All right, cool. So I can take a look at whatever materials that I have in here. Spat. And so we've got a C and then we've got an add C. So in this case, I could add both of these, right? I can add C and the add C. We can use the ID map. The ID map, I'll probably have to adjust the same way I did for the other ones. There we go. So we'll use RMA. We'll use a TSE. And we'll use an N. We'll use an OBD. All right. Now, the OBD, or the OBD isn't really showing a full effect because of the parent material. So the parent material that I'm using does not have a mask to it. But if I were to use this mask version like here, you'll see that it's clear, right? It's going to have those spaces in it that you see in game. The coloring, of course, would need to be adjusted to match. And of course, the alpha stuff I'd have to look at as well. So let's go back to those textures. Ahead and let's open up the ID map. Okay, so why does ID map open? Okay, so that's open funky. So let's do it in here. Let's go into this here and grab DMAP. It's just the image. Let's switch to channel packed and let's switch to color. Okay, so because the PNGs don't always carry over the way we might want them to, um, it is whatever. Okay, so but we can take a look at how this works. So, oh, and we can use fModel to get a better understanding of what's happening. So if we're looking at the spats right here, um, we can look at the split number index by hovering over it, and it says 111. So that means we're using um, 3 different colors. And you might be thinking like, how are we using 3 different colors if we've got white, yellow, and red? Well, because these are based on channels, um, they layer over top each other. If I have red and green, that creates yellow. Red, of course, by itself is red. And if I have red, green, and blue, that creates white. So if I want to see these, separate the color, you can see that the whole base is red. And another thing to note is that when we do colors in Tekken 8, not only the layering matters as well. Red is considered the bottom, then green, then blue, and then alpha. So alpha is like the top of that uh, channel stack. So if you're creating your own IDs and materials, you'll want to keep that in mind depending on how you set them up. All right, so red is this, right? And these are all single full-on colors, right? So if I go into red, you'll see that it's just like that. If I go into green, it's just that. If I go into blue, it's just this, right? So if I want to um, see how this all looks, say we'll call that one red, right? So we'll plug this into the factor, plug this into here. So this is red, right? I can then plug this in, need the result to go in the top one. We'll put green, the factor, but now we'll just switch that to green, right? And then we'll do the same thing for blue, right? So one of the benefits of using layering instead of uh, trying to cut out certain areas, like do I want to cut out the green and the blue from the red, is that you get a cleaner, um, you get a cleaner result doing it this way versus potentially having weird pixelation because the details are kind of crazy. So there are benefits to using layering, um, and, and mainly your biggest benefit is when your UVs are on top of each other. So for example, if I go into edit mode, Alt H, let's just look at that. And let's see what the UVs look like. The UV editor, and we see that the UVs are just this, right? If these sections were all in like different islands, then it really wouldn't matter too much, right? You'd have red, green, and blue. But because these are all on top of each other, right? When we look at this in the color mode, they're all on top of each other, um, and one UV on one shared island. Using the layer option is the more preferred option to use. But what I want to do is I need to get this ready for, um, I need to save this. So I'm going to image, save as, I'll call this ADJ. And I'm just going to save this one as, I'll save it as, it should be fine saving it as a PNG. All right, let me see what that did. Okay, there we go. I'll look at alpha. Alpha's still 0. Let me see if it opens up right in here. So close these. Okay, so this is still acting up. Let's see. That's why is it not opening right? Okay, all right, let's see. Let's see. Okay, let's see if I do it as RGB. Makes a difference. Or actually, let's save it. Let's save it as a TGA. Bruh. Okay, I think that'll work better. Okay, so let's see if Photopea will work a little bit more friendly with this version. And it looks like it is. So there we go. So we've got our mask and whatever. Now that also might mean that I don't have to um, resave it. So let's see if that works. So if I go into here, let's close these. If I go, let's save all these for a second too. So if I go into this ID, oh, the ID is looking good. Okay. All right, never mind. The ID came in nice. I'm not sure why I was having an issue. So we're going to turn sRGB off for sure. And let's go do it. All right, so there's another option. There's another thing that we can do when it comes to um, references and how you might want to use them. So right now, the game has uh, these materials set up, right? They've got these materials set up like so. Um, and let's say I want to make a partial change to the material without having to reload everything and do everything all kinds of crazy. And the two things that I want to mess with are going to be like the roughness and metallic, and uh, I want to make it colorable, right? Those are the two things that I want to do. But I don't want to go through the process of resetting up every material, blah, 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 all that good shit. What I can do is I can grab the two materials that I want to mess with. I can create a, I can create the material instance like so, right? And these are all loaded in. Um, and um, instead of using this directly and creating a new one, I can create an instance from this one. So I can create a material instance from here, and this will pretty much inherit everything from the first one. And as long as I don't include, and then the game will use this as the parent. So basically the game will say, okay, whatever that one has, we'll just pass through, right, to whatever you want to do. And right now you have an ID and an RMA. Now the reason I'll do the ID is because I want to set the colors. So we're going to set this to 0, and I'm going to use ID 1 because I'm only using 1 in the green. We use ID 5 and ID 9. The rest of these we don't need. So let's see if this works. Okay, so there we go. So say I want colors to be like that brownish color or something. All right, so we'll make that brown. Then what is this? This is that stuff. Let's make it like gold color, right? So okay, and then this one we'll make like different kind of gold, maybe. Let's go. Okay. All right, so we've got this. Now this doesn't have to be here. This I can just include now in my material, or yeah, my materials thing, right? One. Now it's not loaded onto my mesh. So now what I'll have to do is go to my mesh, right? And now instead of using the just in-game reference like I'm doing for this one, I will switch. And I don't know why it's not loading right now. I'm not sure. This is saying warning ID map samples, ID is color. Okay, I think this needs to be, can I change this? Let's see if this makes a difference. No. Okay, so I need to make a change to my master material for whatever reason. So I'm going to follow the rabbit hole back to my master material. Normally you wouldn't have to do this, but this is kind of like what I'm going to do. And what it's telling me is that my ID is sampling as color instead of linear color. And I'm not sure the relationship between the texture maps and whatnot. So I'm going to go back into this main thing, try to figure out where my D map is being sampled from. And that's this here. I'm going to switch this to linear color and see if, okay, so that's giving me an issue. So it needs to be color. Hmm. So I don't really want to change that. So what I need to figure out is how can I change this? Let's see. If I turn this back on, does that make a change? It's not making a change. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So another thing is, let's see. Let's try this. I could do this. Save. Okay. All right. So here's the thing that's kind of crazy. So you see that the alpha is gone right now, bro, because I don't know what's going on with the setup. The alpha is gone. However, the game doesn't know that because all of my stuff is emulated and whatever. The game has no idea that the alpha is gone. Also, that orange doesn't look right at all, but that's okay. Um, but what the game doesn't care either. What the game is going to do is look at my material instance that I'm including my mod, and then it's going to look at the parent, right? It's going to look at the parent material. If I go into the parent material like so, I can then look and see what the preset is. And the preset for the parent material is AN mask LT. So because the parent for the parent of the parent I'm using is a masked material, then the game will treat this like a masked material. Now, because I am just inheriting everything except for the ID map and the RMA, which I can then turn off, right? I don't need to use it right now. Because this is going to be the same one from the game. The only thing I really want to change necessarily is the RMA. Or let's maybe not. Let's not change the RMA at all. I just want to make sure I can create an SK map or what's it called? A ID map, not an ID map. I want to create a CI for this, right? Uh, no. Okay. Another thing that's very important is this needs to match. So because I changed this spats to this, I need to make sure it's changed in here too. If not, I will automatically get an error. So let's save all. I'm going to go ahead and make sure the fixed redirectors are all good, which they are. Um, we can kind of see how this works. I can also, I have a BP that's on my GitHub in the code section. Um, that's a that's a CI, and it's one of the easiest tools you can use. Is this thing right here? Um, all to load it, you're just gonna drop this into um, your content uh, thing through the Explorer. So, like if I say show an Explorer, you're gonna want to open up your project and find a place to put it. You don't have to put it in Reborn Utility. You could put it in anything. You could put it in tools, resource, whatever. It just needs to be in your content folder somewhere. That's it. If it's in there, it'll work. Um, but the way this works is once you put in there, you don't have to come back and touch it. Just leave it wherever it is. The way this works is I can go to my mesh, right? And I can right click on it. I can go to scripted assets actions, and then run create CI from SK. And it will create this thing right here. And I can rename it or call it whatever I want to. I could leave it here if I want to, but I typically will always move it over, move it here. What this does is it creates a working CI with all the right stuff, all the colors that it's supposed to have set to it. All right, where's the color? What is this for? Oh, that's for body. Um, sorry, it's not a race line. Okay, so this one, see, there's a color there, there's a color there, etc. But I digress. So But I'm not going to load this one yet. I'm going to go ahead and save everything and then just show you that if you make the changes, um, if you make the changes in your material using the ID setup, it should work. Now, typically I have the ID map turned on whenever I do that. In this case, the ID is turned off for the spats pants. So let's see if that causes an issue or not. I don't think it will, but I don't know for sure. So you can find out in this test. Okay, so that's a little bit about setting up an MI, looking at how the texture maps work, etc., etc. But let's look at some basic physics. So there's usually a physics asset with most of the in-game stuff, but you're not always going to get that. Um, so what do you do? So there's a bunch of different ways that you can address creating physics and whatever. When you can select things, let's select these real quick. When you can select elements, turn this off, of your mesh that pretty much match the shape or whatever that you're working with, then you can make like a duplicate of that and then use that as a proxy mesh. Um, but if you can't, you can create your own proxy mesh. I'll show you how I do that. Now, I don't typically do proxy meshes, or I don't typically do physics with common items. Some people do, I don't. I run into way too many issues, it's way too many headaches. I would rather not do that at all. So I'll show you how I use my shape keys to adjust things, but I usually will always start my build based on the common mesh. So I can always make adjustments from there. So I'm going to go ahead and create, because I want it for this uh, lower part of the jacket. Um, I'm going to go ahead and create a cylinder. All right, so we got the cylinder. And we'll kind of size it, get it generally about the size that we want. Scale it up a little bit, whatever. All right, and then what I do is I'll go into edit mode. I get rid of the top and the bottom X faces. And I'll typically grab the bottom and try to scale it out to about where the bottom of that is. And then for the top, I'll do the same thing. Try to get it to kind of match the body as much as possible on where I want to work with. Then be good. Then I'll go ahead and use the Control R option to create some loop cuts. We'll go into sculpting, and I'll use sculpting to kind of push and pull this mesh um, to match, right? So I like to use elastic grab, make sure that's set on, because most of this stuff is whatever, and I'm just trying to get it to kind of fit the body, or fit the cloth. So it's like right, kind of like in the center of the cloth. Now this has a belt in the back, which makes it a little bit of pain. So I'm going to kind of move this out a little bit more because I think I'm going to include the belt, but I'm not going to include the belt as like a separate physics item. I want it to be treated as one. Some smoothing in here. And now I don't know if anyone kind of explains it, but the reason why I like to keep the mesh kind of centered on whatever I'm going to be putting physics on is because uh, one, I want the best reach of the physics proxy or the proxy mesh to the in game or to the thing that's going to be simulated. And then also, so it makes it easier to adjust to physics capsules as well, right? And I could keep this all together as one piece right here, but I kind of want the stuff to flap a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get rid of those faces, and we'll be good to go for that. Another thing to note is that when you're creating physics, you kind of want them to be, you kind of want them to be a little bit beyond the portion that you're actually going to be applying physics to. Because if the game can't, or if the engine is unsure, it will guess. And it usually guesses weird. So I wouldn't suggest it, right? All right, so I'm going to shade smooth. So your proxy mesh, you're also going to want to make the weights get transferred over. So I'm going to grab the body or whatever, and then I'm going to grab this, yep. Do a weight transfer, transfer weights. Make sure they're set up the same way you need them to. Good. All right. It's also going to be important that the actual mesh parts that you want to move are separated. Not separated specifically, but separated um, by material. So I'm going to grab this stuff here. I like to turn this graphic off so it goes straight. I like to use, I'll find things that I want to select here, and then I use the sync mode by making sure the synchronization is on. And then now I can just go into here, and so instead of having to really spend a lot of time trying to navigate around that mesh, I can kind of use the UVs to get a quicker, faster selection, right? As you see, as I select this stuff, that stuff is getting selected. Then we're going to want the same thing on the inside. And I like the circle select tool. If you see, this is a tool that will pop up. Now, there is an issue with my current setup and this practice. And that is the material that I want to use, or in order to get things to work right now, with the generally used setup, um, I need to use a specific material instance that allows for cloth physics. And right now, that is not what I'm using. And as a result, I'm going to be very disappointed when the time comes. I can also use X-ray mode now. I've got the main areas that I want addressed. I can now do the opposite and I'll select more stuff over here. Go over here and clean it up. Be like, oh, where is it? There it is. I'm just making sure all these things are selected, are still selected, right? Okay. All right, so now that I have pieces that I want to potentially have physics on them, I'm going to go ahead and create a plus, and I'm going to load jacket, right? But then I'm going to use this to create a unique material. I'll call this one physics, and then I'm going to assign it. And then I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'll come back to this. I might have to come back to this tomorrow because it's getting late for tonight. Um, but I do want to demo those two options here. So these are all completed. Everything is done. Cool. Let's save all. Let's go back to our mods, wherever those are. Okay, so here we go. Go back to Windows. There's content. I also like to pay attention to the time. 12:55. It's about 1 o'clock, so it just finished. We'll grab these, copy them back into here. Those out of here. Control V, F2, score P. All right. Yeah, I'm going to save this for now. But I also want to make sure that I've assigned these, right? So I'm going to hit sign. Now, if I hit select, I'll just grab these. Now, as for what they look like, they still look the same, right? It doesn't look like anything has changed at all, and that's going to be the goal. But I am going to need to redo the textures if I want the setup. Also, if I add physics to this, then me personally, I won't be able to add coloration. Now, I know we have a guy in our community that did show people how to use the colorized, um, using colors and such, but I have not been able to figure it out personally because I haven't the time to do so. Um, so right now, anything I make with physics is not going to be colorable. But that could be good or bad depending on the situation. And of course, it is up to the modder themselves. But if I was doing a commission for somebody, I'd have to let them know that that's not available from my toolkit yet. And so the last things I'm going to do before I cut off this particular slide or stream is to let's go ahead and see what the edited materials look like. Let's see if there's any difference in results for those materials being used as a reference. That's the key thing. And one of the things that I do want to work on at some point is face maps. Or not face maps, but more of the facial mods and getting those up. Because once I can do face mods really well, I will be more inclined to start designing faces um, more often. Whether they be based on a celebrity, or meant to look like a celebrity, or just a new character version, right? I feel it'd be kind of cool. Come on, load. There we go. See? Now, one of the things, so this will happen once in a while as well. And it looks, oh, what I do? I just completely got out of it. Um, there's a couple things that you want to do when you're putting in your textures and switching them up. And I'll show you what that is in just a moment to try to avoid getting like choppy looking textures in your mods. But I just want to, so if we look at, and I can't really move around very well. I don't know how to move around correctly with, let's see. So it looks like the buttons didn't catch. And so I'm not sure why the buttons didn't catch, to be honest. Because I don't think I made them white. I don't know how to zoom in. How do I zoom? There we go. Okay, so it looks like that stuff did work. I don't need to be so far up across. How do I unzoom this far? What is that? I don't know what that is. Escape. Damn it. Where's it? Alright, so that's zoom out. This is zoom in. Is it rotate? Shift. Control. Is there no... Oh, V? No, okay, insert. Okay. What is RS? Number pad or something? But I don't know then. Where's V? So V up and down. Left. RSS. RS, right? Why won't it let me rotate? All right, whatever. Getting too caught up on that. But yeah, sometimes it doesn't play nice for whatever reason. I'm not always sure what the reason is. Let's take a look at the materials for. And it looks like the ID maps weren't an issue either. So yeah, like for whatever reason, that didn't pick up. Right, so let's try this option. Right, so we'll do this option. We'll keep everything exactly the same, except we'll turn split number channel on. Yeah, and so that's it. We're just gonna turn all this stuff. whatever. That. All right, so 4100. That's what that's supposed to be. So we'll hit save. But let's go into here. Switch this to instance. But also want to move this instance into one. And now to adjust what I'm packing, I'm gonna take this one and I'm gonna remove where? Okay, so I'm gonna use that scripted assets because I made a change to it. Oh wait, make sure is this one updated? Let me do it. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. So we bought that. Let's go ahead and delete. Let's see. We're gonna delete this one. Bring this here. Okay, that's where it already is. Okay. Oh, that's not what I need. I mean, it's fine being in there, but we need the IP. So the IP, I'm going to switch in here. Now I'm going to use this one instead. All right. And just to make sure everything is level, we'll just go in and just pick some random colors. Okay, so let me just do this one more time. Boom. All right, so I brought this, and what I'm going to do is I want to replace this one, right? But I don't want to go through the whole process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this one, right? And I'm going to delete it. And then I want to replace the reference. So I'm going to go in here, I'll hit Control V because I copied the name and grab that. And say replace references. Let's say if you want to, because it'll delete the other one, you say sure. Save selected. Boom. If I go into here, I can just grab this one, throw it back in the three. Solid. Right. Save all. Make sure vectors are good. And let's go ahead and let's see how long this cookie is. And I don't have any background music today just because I don't feel like setting it up. So I apologize. And I wanted to do a quick video, but this is um, almost 3 hours long. I'm going to try to go back and timestamp everything so people can quickly go through it because I think this one is relatively straightforward, but I don't know. I'm going to need people to tell me Is it too much information? Not enough information? Too hard to follow? Things of that nature. Man, it's always painful to watch. Like it takes forever when you watch it. I think it's almost done. So it's about a little bit over 2 minutes for the first section, about 4 minutes the remaining part. That's like 6 minutes. So it's not forever long, not at all. So that's good. Which one is it? All right, so these are 12:55. All right, so thing that I'm looking out for right now is uh is the does the CI work? Like and I switched the let's take a quick look here real quick just to make sure. I'm pretty sure I did update both of these. So this should be is this they're both using the instance then? Yeah. Okay, so I should be good there. Yeah. Mhm. I've seen a couple people do some Lego mods, but I'm wondering if we can do like a Lego mod where the bricks are a little bit smaller. Maybe we get some more detail. I don't know. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we got our different colors. And looks like we've got colors on everything right now. But I don't know if they're the right colors. Let's see. They are, but they don't look. Well, no, that's supposed to be blue, but instead we've got yellow. Damn, I wish I could turn her. Um, but let's go into here. How do I? There we go. Okay, this is confusing. All right, let's do run over. So do that. Okay, so now the colors are there. Okay, so let's see. What if I switch this? See, I'm not sure which colors are which. Damn it. I don't know. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the colors are moving. All right, so the colors are moving for some reason, which I'm not sure why that is. Hmm. All right, so I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to troubleshoot that tomorrow, I think. Yeah, let's try. I'll have to troubleshoot that tomorrow. I mean, it's none of them working. All right, so let me do this real quick as well. All right, so I'm just using the bulk option set to EverStream. Okay, I need all of these except for the sRGB off. Now I need to flip the normals for this one. The IDs should be. Oh, and then for all of these, I'm going to change the MIP to only first, and then we'll run no MIPS. So that should make some adjustments to it. But yeah, so I'll have to double check and take a look. Sometimes what happens is the CIs themselves are kind of hard coded to stuff. So that's where we get some discrepancies. So I have to do a little bit more playing around just to figure that out. And then I'll make sure that once I figure out what it is, then I'll update this stream. And I'll see what I can do about turning this all into to a functional project that's a lot shorter. But that being said, 3 hours for 4 hours on a mod, it's not, it's far from uncommon. I'm trying to make the process way faster, but still same. But keep that in mind when you ask people to do stuff for your commission. That for an experienced person to do a mod is going to take, you know what I mean, between 2 to 5 or 6 hours of their time to get done. Even for simple stuff, you're looking at an hour or two. But I'm starting to cough on stuff, so I think it's time to go. But yeah, we'll see how this goes.